Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out to Nerd Nite. This is an event that's super dear to my heart. I've been a nerd for many years. But this is also my first, so I've known Rory for a few years, and he actually brought me onto the team. So along with being able to indulge in some of my avian nerdery, I'm really excited to be part of this. I'm so excited to see you all here as well. So thank you for coming out and supporting your local nerds. Now, thank you. If you've been to Nerd Nite before, you may recognize me. I've done a couple of these, which I'm really grateful for. I did one. My first one was called Bullshit in Space, which was all. So I spent about 10 years working at a planetarium in the city of Pittsburgh, and dealt with a lot of astronomical misconceptions in that particular talk. I also did a bass guitar talk earlier tonight. I went to music school long ago, so I've nerded in a lot of directions, and now I'm going to take you to a nerd direction that's very dear to my heart. You may notice I'm wearing a bird-themed shirt. I am a birder. Are there any other birders out there? Yeah. So birding, it's just it's the cool way to say bird watching. I know. But basically, I'm really fascinated by birds in the area. I have a degree in biology. I'm really interested in life in general. Birds are particularly observable, right? Like if you go out there and you try and observe mammals, they tend to run away and hide in little holes and stuff. But birds are available. They're out there. Because they fly, they're visible. They're not so afraid of you. You can actually get a good look at birds on a day-to-day basis. In fact, after this talk, if you go outside, I guarantee you will see or hear a bird within a minute. And hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll be able to tell what kind of bird it is. So I hope you're all ready to bird out with your nerd out and rock out with your squawk out. Let's get started here. All the birds that I'm going to talk about tonight, these are Yinzer birds. These are birds that you will see here. So every single, I should say there's one exception. This is a South American bird called a putu or a potu, and I just couldn't not put it on here. I mean, look at that face. It's amazing. That's the actual living animal looks like this. It's remarkable. But everything else that we're going to see tonight is a Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania at least bird. This is something that you can see within an hour of here. I have observed essentially all of the species that you'll see here, including, we've got these black and yellow birds here. American goldfinch you've probably seen. These are very common in the area, black and gold. Bird, the two on the opposite side of the stage there are both examples of the wood warblers. For my birders out there, you know how cool warblers are. They're probably the best. And then the bobolink, amazing name, right? The bobolink also has an incredible call. I liken it to, imagine R2-D2 on LSD. You may actually have to imagine it. Pardon me.
Just crawl it out. Did very well.
No, didn't. Oh, wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Cormac. He's actually a remarkable person. He is the sound guy here at Spirit. I don't know if you've ever had to run sound at an event. Did it do the thing again?
I think it did the thing.
It did the thing. Running sound guys are like the least appreciated people on earth. They are remarkable, though. We all, like, if you've ever been to an event where people use like amplified sound, they're heroes. So please give another round of applause to Cormac here, as he solves problems that I'm not nerdy enough to be able to solve. It may come to pass that we have to move on from the bobolink without hearing its sonorous song. Okay. Oh, I'm going to do the thing where I... Oh.
There we are.
Right? Weird as hell. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the bobolink. Dolichonyx Ories. I usually know the common names better than the science names. Anyway, moving on. The migrating turd. This is a bird you've all seen. The American robin. This is probably the most common native bird that we see. And its Latin name really is Turdus migratorius, which on its face seems like the migrating turd. By the way, this guy here, this is a juvenile. So, you're probably used to seeing individuals more similar to the male adult that we have on my left, your right. But as young birds, all species in the thrush sort of group of birds will display spots like this. And that's actually what turdus means in Latin. It doesn't mean piece of shit. Although, if you're way into birding, you eventually get, you're like, oh, what was that? Oh, shit, it's a robin. Like, that happens a lot. But they're also delightful. They're a beautiful bird. They sing beautifully. If they were less common, I think we'd actually appreciate them a whole lot more. But there we have it, the American robin, Turdus migratorius. Next up, classic, goat suckers or nightjars. So this group of birds, they're actually global. They are kind of, weird birds. They have relatively short bills that they can open really wide. And because of that, and the fact that they're all active at night, they're nocturnal birds, for thousands of years, people have believed that their dairy, especially goats, would run dry, not because they were shitty dairy farmers, but because these birds would sneak in the middle of the night and suckle on the goats. That's not what they actually do, as far as I'm aware. I haven't seen it. They mostly eat insects. In fact, if you've been to a stadium at Heinz Field, yeah. Have you ever seen a bird at a night game flying around the lights, picking off moths? They're often the common nighthawk. Eastern whippoorwill, also a notable one. And these are birds that if you're lucky, you'll see them. You're much more likely to hear them. The whippoorwill is going to be in more rural areas. It sounds like this. And it's actually, you can kind of remember it. It's whippoorwill, whippoorwill. And they'll do that for, 9 hours in a row. It's not subtle. And then the nighthawk is one you almost certainly will hear tonight. Like after the third disgusting, amazing talk that we're going to see, go outside, listen carefully, and there's a very good chance. They're in the city of Pittsburgh. These are not rural-only birds. They are present very much in the city, and common nighthawk sounds like this. Kind of silly bird. They call it a peent call, and yeah, keep your ears out for that. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a nighthawk flying around above our heads like right now. We're definitely within 1,000 feet of a nighthawk. Anyway, next up, we've got the Timberdoodles. Now, they're more commonly known as the American woodcock, much more sensible name. They're a kind of shorebird, which is kind of a misnomer too. So we see these sandpiper-like birds often at the shore, at the coast. That's not always the case. Woodcocks live around here. In fact, there are breeding woodcocks up in North Park. Unfortunately, they're already done with the really vocal part of their breeding cycle. However, I'm going to show you a video. These guys are hilarious and amazing. And if you thought that nighthawk peent call was awesome, wait until you hear the peent of a Timberdoodle. Yeah, it's got that big peent energy. Also, notice that the bill is not completely rigid on this bird. As they peent, the bill will actually flex. And that, it's just, I don't know, it's weird, right? They're brilliant. They also have a very specific mating flight that they do after this peent display. They'll fly up about 600 feet and then spiral down. And basically, in woodcock language, they're just like, fuck me, fuck me, fuck me. But it's pretty effective. They also are hilarious walkers. Woodcocks, and many birds, but woodcocks are really notable for a sort of well, they do this. That's like how they walk. That's their normal, like, walking down the street vibe. And then now, ornithologists posit that they do this because it stirs up, every time they sort of have their weight hit on the bottom of that, worms that might be under the surface will move, and that movement is something that they can detect. And their bills are very sensitive. They have sort of like electrical sensation on the tips of their bills that they can probe and eat, earthworms and things, and grubs and things like that. Anyway, these, like, straight up, they're in North Park. Like, we're not far from Timberdoodles at the moment. But moving on to the audience participation part of the evening. So birds, they're vocal, right? They're very vocal like we are. And it turns out that you can totally trick birds into talking to you, in particular owls. So there's more than 4 owl species in Pennsylvania, but these are the 4 most common. And I'm going to teach you guys how to call them. We're all going to call owls together. It's going to be amazing. Now, I want to make a point. These are not similar in size. The saw-whet owl here is smaller than this beer, which will be getting smaller in a moment. And then the screech owl is a little bit bigger, probably about the size of a robin. A barred owl, if it was standing on this table, would be maybe about there, maybe a little bigger than a crow. And then a great horned owl is pretty large. They'll be like about that tall, and they're actually, they're like the Tyrannosaurus of the skies. Great horned owls will eat almost anything, including all the other owls here. So if you decide to call owls in real life, in the world, it is important that you call them in order from the smallest to the largest. Because if you're lucky enough that a saw-whet owl happens to be nearby, and then you go ahead and call a great horned owl, this little guy's going to fuck right off. Like, it's not going to stick around, because they straight up do get eaten. So the order we're going to call them in now is not the order I recommend in the wild. This is the order in which it will be the easiest to get started. And with the great horned owl is the owl that I think is the easiest to call. And I'm gonna actually turn this on, because I really want a recording of a large group of people doing this. So the great horned owl is known for hooting. But they do sort of a random low-pitched hoot, is oh, 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 oh. And I would like you all to attempt that now. Go on! A little longer. And scene. Beautiful. That was amazing. You guys have no idea, as a bird nerd, how satisfying that is for me. The next owl I'd like to call is the barred owl. This is the owl I've had the most conversations with. I've literally been camping nearby in, say, Ohio Pile or Moraine State Park, something like that, and been able to call in and actually reliably talk to a barred owl before. Their call has a mnemonic. We remember it as saying, "Who cooks for you?" But the actual call sounds like, "Woo, woo, woo, woo." You guys ready? Yes! Amazing. Seriously, get good at that one. That one works. They all work. So the reason I picked these 4, these are the 4 that I've actually been able to call and get a real response from. So this totally does work. Also, keep your ears open. If you hear a distant barred owl, there's a good chance you can draw them in with the "Who Cooks for You" call. Next up, I think I'm going to actually skip over to the saw-whet owl. The best way to do this is with a whistle. It's actually just a really simple whistle. It's that's it. Keep on going. Yeah. Now, if there happen to be any saw-whet owls in the area right now, they are freaking out. What the hell is going on in spirit? And the last, this is the tricky one. Eastern screech owl is totally doable. It's another whistly owl. It's a little weird. It's a little gross. You have to get a small amount of saliva in your mouth and tilt your head back. right. You're right. That one's this is why I'm doing it in this order, right? This is definitely the advanced owl call. A little bit of saliva. Hold your head back so the saliva sort of sits in the back of your mouth, and then as you whistle, it'll sort of bubble and cause it to. You guys sound amazing. Please give yourselves a round of applause. I was so worried that people would be like, no, I'm not doing that. But you did, and I'm really proud of you. I think we should all be proud of one another. Anyway, that is, those are actually effective techniques that you can use to call owls, which is a delight. Now, moving on to another large bird of prey in the area, we've got the American bird, the bald eagle. Believe it or not, these are both bald eagles. When bald eagles first hatch out, it takes about 2 months for them to reach adult size, but it takes them 5 years to reach adult plumage. Right? So they don't become sexually mature and reach that breeding plumage until they're about 5, which means that for several years they're going to be a giant, dark bird of prey, as we see over here. Now, the bald eagle is very famous for its call. Yeah, right? Now, the one thing about that scream call that we just heard is that's not a bald eagle. So in popular culture, in TV shows, the Colbert Report, very famously, it's the second time it's come up tonight, amazing. They have this scream. That scream comes from another bird of prey in the area, but not the bald eagle. The bald eagle sounds like a total nerd. Take a listen. Yeah. That's it. I mean, that's really what they sound like. They sound like, I don't know, like a dorky seagull or something. But anyway, these are also present in Pittsburgh. You can see a bald eagle anytime you want. If you head down, there's a bike trail that goes along the Monongahela River. And just around the water park area, if you look across the river, you're very, very likely to see bald eagles. They breed there. There's an eagle's nest there. This is also a bird that I think there's a special Pittsburgh connection with this one. A very famous environmentalist is from this area. Rachel Carson. Anyone know who Rachel Carson is? Yeah, total badass. I hope her Wikipedia is amazing. It should be. If it's not, go fix it. Actually, one of the bridges in town is named after her. And her work, especially Silent Spring, but also ensuing work after that, was responsible for the banning of DDT, which drove bald eagles nearly to extinction. And that was banned years and years ago. They've thankfully rebounded. And I've actually been riding my little bicycle across the Rachel Carson Bridge for real and seeing a bald eagle fly right down the Allegheny River, which I think is just beautiful and amazing. Way to go, Rachel Carson. Thank you. That was awesome. I want more Rachel Carsons in my life. Anyway, this is what the actual Squawk bird looks like. I'm better at owls than I am at hawks. This is the Red-Tailed Hawk, Buteo jamaicensis, named after Jamaica. This is where Western people first described it, first saw it. It turns out it's actually a bird that you'll see all over North America, and not just in Jamaica, and including in Pittsburgh. In fact, the vast majority of birds of prey you see here in Pittsburgh are going to be red-tailed hawks. So if you see a hawk and you're like, what kind of hawk is that? You can pretty much be sure it's a red-tailed hawk. One of the most annoying things about the red-tailed hawk is that a lot of them don't have a red tail. It's like a pretty shitty name, right? They do, however, have some identifying features. This is where I'm going to get actually nerdy. If we look at the leading edge of the wings here, you'll see what is called a dark patagial bar. So this dark leading edge of the wing is diagnostic for red-tailed hawks. So if you see a hawk soaring above and you notice this dark, and you'll actually see the dark patagial here as well, and then this band of dark feathers across the belly, often called a belly band, also diagnostic usually in this area pretty much for red-tailed hawk. Anyway, they're a really neat bird, and they're one that you'll see within 24 hours if you just look around you. They're here a lot. Next up, this is going to be tricky, but I guarantee you that by the end of this talk, you'll be able to, within 99% accuracy, identify every hummingbird species in Pennsylvania. So you'll see we have all these various hummingbirds that we have here in Pennsylvania. And the best way to identify them is to say it's a ruby-throated hummingbird. These are all ruby-throated hummingbirds. That's the only species of hummingbird we have here. Now, you'll notice they don't all have ruby throats. The most classic look is this guy here. Their feathers, however, the coloration we see here is a structural color. It's very iridescent. It's very sort of directional. So this male down here in the corner, also that's the same color as that. It's just not pointed with the light source and camera in line, so we don't see that sort of bright flash. If it doesn't have a gorget, that's what they call those sexy feathers, it is... that's why they're there, right? This is a female. You can see the females. Now, the juveniles also lack that, and then they molt into it. And you can see here a young male just starting to molt in. This is like that kid with that shitty mustache, basically. No offense. I was that kid. It happens. It's embarrassing, but we move on. And then sometimes people put you in a talk about it. But the hummingbirds are really interesting. They are only found in the New World, in the Americas. And they are part of a clade. Any clade people out there? Any biology people? Yeah! Phylogeny! They're part of a clade called Apodiformes, which is Latin for footless. And the other apodiforms that we have here are the swifts. And here we see the Chimney Swift. This is a very common... Yeah! Got a Chimney Swift fan out there, yes. I love a Chimney Swift. They are a remarkable bird. Footless, they call them that. So both hummingbirds, and actually even more so swifts, have very reduced feet. A swift cannot stand on its own. It cannot walk. It cannot take off from a flat surface. Basically, its feet are like Velcro. They'll sort of stick to the side of a tree or the interior of a chimney, and that's it. And then other than that, they're on the wing essentially all the time. In fact, they really only stop flying during their breeding season, which happens around here in the summertime. They'll breed inside of chimneys in large groups. They'll build these little nests in the wintertime. And this is something that exploded my brain when I first heard about it. They fly south. They fly to South America. But when ornithologists track them there, the numbers are not nearly what they should be. We don't see nearly as many as we would expect. And that's because, well, we don't really know for sure, but the leading theory is that they just fly up to about 10,000 feet and live there. They can sleep while they fly? Yeah. What the fuck? Sorry, that's so rude. But really, though, it's wow, what? They sleep, they eat, they do everything while they're flying, and they essentially live in the sky. They're, in a sense, most birds are land animals, and these ones are more sky animals, and that just melts my brain. However, they are also very common around here at this time of year. If the sun's still up, when you go outside tonight, you definitely will see chimney swifts here, and if you don't, you will see them tomorrow, guaranteed. And I'll actually play that video one more time just so that you can get a look. Some people call them a flying cigar. We have this sort of fusiform body, and then these flicker. They almost have a bat-like flight to them. They definitely have a bat-like behavior. They're insectivorous, so they're eating insects on the wing, and they have a sort of a chittering call that's really unique. So, once you get to recognize them, you'll see them all over the place, and they totally blow my mind. They're amazing. Next up, we have the shrikes. Now, to be fair, this is not that common. They're here, but they're not here a lot. But they're really weird, and I really wanted to show them to you, so I included them. You'll notice, so this is like a songbird, right? They're in the passerine group. They are perching birds, very similar to, a warbler or a finch or something like that. However, they've gone down a dark evolutionary. Well, not they've become carnivorous. So, yeah, they're not just eating bugs. Lots of stuff eat bugs. I mean, little baby me ate bugs. But why did I say that? But you notice the hook on the bill here. They're on their way to convergently evolving into that familiar raptor shape, which has actually happened multiple times. By the way, the owls, the eagles, and the falcons, not very closely related. That sort of hooked bill talon thing just shows up. If birds eat enough meat for long enough, they start looking like that. But the shrikes don't have the muscular feet and talons of other birds of prey. They're relatively small, and so they use their environment to help them do terrible things to their food. They use big thorny bushes and impale their prey. And actually, occasionally you'll see like a bush, like a thorny bush with like a bunch of like frogs and mice, just like nightmare town. If you don't like seeing impaled mice, look away now. But that's how they are. Yeah. Like, it's not a very big bird either, right? Like, whoa. And they do actually, this happens like around here. Sorry, I need to drink when I see a shrike. All right, next up, the falcon. There are actually 3 falcons around here. You'll notice I'm wearing a falcon on my shirt. This is a Peregrine Falcon. If there are any like super bird nerds out there, there's an amazing event. It's a fundraiser for a nature center around the Penn State area called the Birding Cup. And in this, you have a team of people, which I've competed on many times. It's a 24-hour competition to identify as many species as you possibly can. One year, not this year, but recently we won. We got 140, yes, thank you. Go Chick McGreer and the Kickers, we're the best. Well, not this year, but we were once. And we actually usually get one of these. And so this is the Peregrine Falcon. They famously nest on the Cathedral of Learning. So anyone who's familiar with Oakland, any Pitt people or just Pittsburgh people, you're very likely to see these. I see these in Oakland very often when I visit that area. Among other things, these are very notable for being the fastest animal, period. They're fast, unless you count people in airplanes, but that's bullshit. They can fly at about 250 miles an hour. What? Like, if you jump out of an airplane and point your head at the ground and just go straight down, you will be slower than these birds. It's mind-blowing. In fact, they have an adaptation that is really interesting. Here in the nostril, you see that sort of yellow bump there? That's a baffle, a wind-obscuring structure, so their lungs don't explode. Yeah. And they dive at this incredible speed to hunt. They eat pigeons and other things like that, and they will literally punch their prey out of the air, because if they had their talons open, they would break their toes, and that's not good. Nobody likes broken toes. So they will straight up punch a falcon out of the sky at like 250 miles an hour, and then as it's falling, they'll catch it and go tear it apart and eat it. But they're really remarkable birds. They're also they're more closely related to parrots than they are to hawks, which I think is really interesting. The evolutionary relationships amongst groups of birds are complex and also fairly well understood. So if you're into phylogeny, check out the falcon. And you can also recognize them. They look a little different. So from the ground, if they're up above your head, you're not going to see that much like they do have this very characteristic helmet of dark feathers. That can be tricky to see, but the wing shape, they almost look like somewhere between a hawk and a gull almost. They have these pointed wings here, very different than the sort of fingers you see on a hawk or an eagle or something like that. And they're amazing. As a child, that was my favorite animal on the planet. There's nothing like them. And they are totally present here. And my wife actually asked me to tell this story about them, which is kind of weird. But the ones that live on the cathedral, for a while there, the female, the mother was not well. She had like 4 chicks, and she just fed all the weak ones to the strong one. And like, yeah. Do you hear that laugh back there? That's for you, babe. Anyway, my last slide of the night is the horrible duck penis. It's weird. So almost all birds lack a penis entirely. The penis is not normal in birds. They have a cloaca, which is its own thing. But if you're interested in cloacas, find me after the show. Why did I say that? So ducks, including our friend here, the mallard. This is a drake, a male mallard that we see around here all the time. They're in the river, like right down there. They have, not only do they have a penis, which is weird for birds anyway, they have an 18-inch penis. Yeah! And it corkscrews, and it is explosive, and it has barbs on it. Yeah. And there's people, biologists describe it as a sexual arms race in evolutionary terms. It's actually kind of like a horror show. I am not going to show you pictures of it. I'm not. But you can Google them or whatever on your own time. It's messed up. Duck sex is the weirdest, probably worst sex out there. But notable. And that is the end. Thank you so much. All right, I guess we'll take a few minutes for questions. If anyone has questions.